Good morning, everyone. Welcome to ISAS Facebook Live once again. As you know, today we are discussing the Pakistan's election. So Pakistan goes to poll today, and we have with us Dr. Iqbal Singh, who's visiting associate research professor at ISAS, who covers Pakistan and will share with us today and discuss aspects of Pakistan's elections today. So Iqbal, Pakistan goes to polls, and in a run-up to the elections, especially during the campaigning period, what, if any, were the significant developments that may influence the outcome of today's polls?
Hi, ma'am. Nice to be here. Well, some 106 million registered voters are eligible to cast their ballots today in Pakistan for not just the National Assembly but also for provincial assemblies as well. Given the large number of the potential large number of people voting and the complexities surrounding Pakistan itself, one can imagine there are a number of issues that would determine their vote, ranging from issues of corruption, healthcare, infrastructure, to the place of religion in society and politics as well. Having said that, there are two major developments that, especially in the recent weeks, have come to dominate the hustings, and there are two narratives that have emerged from it as well. So let me start with the two major developments first. Very briefly, the first, of course, is the issue of the resignation and subsequent disqualification of the former Prime Minister of Pakistan, Nawaz Sharif, from holding any office for life, and subsequently his imprisonment for 10 years on charges of corruption. Now, this can all be traced back to the leak of the so-called Panama Papers a few years ago. Not to go into too much of detail about the Panama Papers itself, but essentially Nawaz Sharif and his family were implicated in these leaks for having links with a number of offshore companies, and in legal proceedings that came about as a response to that, Nawaz Sharif and his family were found to have disproportionate amounts of revenue, which didn't tell you what they had previously declared. And this led to a rather interesting and controversial legal case in which he was first forced to resign, but then subsequently not only imprisoned but also disqualified for life from holding political office in Pakistan. Now, this is interesting, not just about the implication it has on Nawaz Sharif's party, but also that this is one of the first examples of judicial intervention in the political realm in Pakistan. And of course, this led to qualifications about the place of controversies about the place of the judiciary, its role in the political sphere. To put this into a little context, the present elections in Pakistan are very significant because this is only the second time in Pakistan's history that one has a democratic transition. And so for Nawaz Sharif's party, it was extremely important to see through the 5 years. So from that perspective, the judicial intervention has opened up a number of possibilities in this election itself. The other thing, and perhaps we'll talk more about it as we interact further, is also the concerns about the role of the military in these elections as well. A number of media sources have highlighted censorship being imposed on them by claiming to be part of the military or claiming to represent the military as well. Geo TV has had its programming coverage of the elections curtailed. Dawn, which is the most circulated English news daily in Pakistan, has also openly raised the issue of their own circulation of the papers being controlled as well. And a recent report by the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan has actually substantiated these concerns. So analysts are actually looking at the role of the military in not just persecuting certain individuals, but also imposing a form of censorship which can then skew the elections in favor of their chosen candidate, who happens to be Imran Khan. I suspect we'll be talking about Imran Khan in a bit.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, definitely. And I think you've sort of also, alluded to your expectations on elections. But if I could just press on further, in your opinion, who are the likely winners? And what may the Pakistani future government look like? Are we expecting a clear winner or a coalition of sorts?
I wish I had the answer. I wish I had. This particular election has been incredibly difficult to call. All opinion polls indicate, or most opinion polls indicate, that this is an extremely close battle between two parties. One is Imran Khan's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, or the PTI, and the other is Nawaz Sharif's party, the Pakistan Muslim League, Nawaz. And what one finds is that the expectations are that neither of these two parties will be able to cobble together a majority. So, in this open space, what one finds is that the independence will probably become incredibly important. And so that's where the space is open. Now, my own suspicion is if the magic number is 137, 272 seats up for grabs in the National Assembly. If the PTI, Imran Khan's party, gets close to that figure, I suspect a lot of independents would actually cast their lot with the PTI. Having said that, most of these opinion polls were conducted before Nawaz Sharif actually returned to Pakistan and was arrested. So Nawaz Sharif was actually in the UK because his wife was having serious medical issues, and so he spent a lot of time there. But just prior to the elections, he came back to present himself as a martyr of sorts to the political process. And so, how is that going to translate in the political parlance? We don't have any indication about that. And I'd also like to point out here, right, that, and I started by saying that they're not just voting for the National Assembly, but Pakistanis would also be electing provincial assemblies. And provincial assemblies are incredibly important here as well for two reasons. One is that the province of Punjab, which itself has 141 constituency seats, out of a total of 272 that are up for grabs, who takes Punjab pretty much has the key to the National Assembly. And Nawaz Sharif's party, it's ostensibly being headed by his brother Shahbaz Sharif now. But that Punjab is their bastion. So one does have to see if Imran Khan's party, the PTI, can actually make a dent in there as well. I mean, in the last election in 2013, the PML Nawaz actually swept all majority of seats in Punjab. And the interesting thing is that if one actually steps away from electoral opinion polls into opinion polls about delivery and infrastructure development in the provinces itself, in Punjab, one finds that Nawaz Sharif's party is seen favorably by the electorates. And that's why I say we have to actually look at provincial level politics as well. And here, I'd just like to end by highlighting that there are potentially three scenarios. One is the PTI comes close to the magic number and is able to draw on the independents and form the government. And I alluded to this before, the PTI is seen to be the favored party of the military. So therefore, as far as it gets close to a number, one does suspect that there will be pressure on the president to call on the PTI first. The second, of course, the second scenario that's possible is that the PMLN actually holds on to the province of Punjab, not only in the provincial level, but also at the national level, and on the basis of that is able to cobble together a coalition with the third party, which I've not mentioned, which is the Pakistan People's Party, party that actually is strong in the province of Sindh. But this time around, it's not faring too well in the provinces, but it's looking to play the role of the kingmaker. So there is a possibility of these two parties coming together to keep the PTI out. The third scenario is that you get a PTI government at the center and you get a Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz government in the province of Punjab. And this is going to be an interesting scenario where you have two rival parties, each at the center, but also Punjab being the richest and most populous province. So it's interesting times in politics.
That is very interesting indeed, especially since Imran Khan himself was instrumental in Nawaz Sharif's fall from power, and certainly a lot of analysts have also accredited that to his strategic rise in power as well. But in your opinion, much has been made about Imran Khan's chances this time around, as you have pointed out. But what are the factors that are influencing his rise and his possible success? I mean, you've also brought up the point and the role of the military in this. How important is that, and what other factors are behind Imran Khan's rise?
The military's role primarily should be seen in context of censoring news coverage about opponents, etc., etc. But there are, and I'd like to point out here, there are other very substantial issues that have actually contributed to the rise of Imran Khan's party as well, which, and I don't want to just limit it to being the chosen party, etc.
Sure.
I don't want to go down that route. And just to highlight some of these issues here, one is Imran Khan's and the PTI's constant focus on the issue of corruption. And this has struck a chord. And as the Panama Papers controversy shows, he was vindicated. And I bring this issue up because Imran Khan was fundamental in getting this issue the limelight that it should. He not only led a number of demonstrations where tens of thousands of people joined in, but he also lodged petitions in the legal sphere as well, pushing the Supreme Court to investigate cases. So this really brought him into the limelight, and but also allowed him to actually develop grassroots support bases, which he didn't previously have. So the entire demonstrations that he pulled up.
Sure.
So that's the issue. His focus on corruption has also been aided by favorable views about his party's government in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, where his party has been in charge since 2013. Healthcare services have widely improved and have generally been appreciated and praised beyond the province as well. So he uses that as a base to argue that this is the cornerstone of what he describes as the Islamic welfare state that he seeks to develop in Pakistan itself. So he draws upon that example, and this has helped. But there's another element to this as well, and that is that he's been able to actually cobble together a very broad and interesting coalition of voters, if I could use that term. His anti-corruption slogans draw in the urban youth especially, but he also has been appealing to the social and religious conservative elements as well. He has, and I would say he would, he's open support for blasphemy laws in Pakistan. I don't think I need to go into details about those, but he has openly and many times unprovokedly expressed support for these laws. His comments his comments on the Ahmadiyya community, a minority which is seen to be non-Muslim, and his party's reference to Nawaz Sharif's party trying to tone down the blasphemy laws, etc. I would say this is not just by chance. There is a cultivated effort to appeal to a certain community of voters, mostly. So on that aspect, he's been able to merge two groups which other parties have not really mainstreamed to that level. But the third element that has been very interesting in these elections that could actually help the PTI achieve the numbers, especially in Punjab, is the fact that his party has wooed and successfully wooed a number of what in Pakistan are described as electables. These are people who have, for historic reasons or for reasons of social status, have entrenched position and influence within certain areas, and they are described electables because it is likely that these influences allow them to actually get elected in elections. And reports indicate that in Punjab itself, his party has been able to woo at least 20 of these electables, who would probably bring in the votes in their constituencies. So this is a very interesting coalition of the urban youth, social religious conservatives, and also what I would describe as the feudal electorables.
Sure.
And I would say that it's not just about the military, but it's about his social engineering, about building this base that he's appealing to. So I look forward to see how this plays out.
Certainly, we are all looking forward to it as well. Last but not least, when could we expect any signs of results coming out, do you think?
Well, we hear that the polls have opened a few hours ago. Shahbaz Sharif, the ex-governor of Punjab, has called on people not to waste time, go out and vote immediately. So all parties are calling for a high voter turnout. So again, it depends on voter turnout, but the early indications apparently will start coming in tonight. The final numbers may take a few more days because there are some constituencies in which candidates have been disqualified for various reasons. So there's a little lack of clarity on those issues there. But barring any mishaps or any major disruptions, by tomorrow morning we should have indication of who's going to be the next Prime Minister of Pakistan.
Sure, great. Well, thank you so much, Iqbal, for sharing your very detailed thoughts with us. And I think it's going to be an interesting few days as we stay tuned in to what happens in Pakistan. For our viewers out there, if you want to find out more on Iqbal's thoughts on elections, he is putting out a brief today on this. So stay tuned to our ISAS website and Facebook page for more details on that. And we hope you will be following the elections closely as well. Thank you, Iqbal.
My pleasure.